Just going to respond to the Amazing Atheist. I agree with the conspiracy people that the Federal Reserve and the Bilderberg Group and Jesuits and the Freemasons and the Zionist Jews and the corporations and the two-party system have a lot of power, but I also don't think people really understand how to fight that power. What do I mean by this? Well, you don't fight the Federal Reserve by saying you right out want to end it, that's for sure. I mean, if I was a power broker, I wouldn't want someone to end my engine of economic power now, would I? So you don't fight a powerful person by telling them how you want to end their business. That's just stupid. It's like telling your opponent in a chess game what your next move is going to be. It just doesn't work. If you want to win something, you do it smart. You don't complain when someone else is winning. Which brings me to my next point. What do the Federal Reserve abolitionists want to replace the Fed with anyway? I know they want some gold standard to appear out of nowhere when the banks crash, but honestly I think we'd go to a barter system before that. I mean, money is only worth what the person controlling it thinks it's worth, isn't it? And I just want to say I'm not an economist or a banker, but I tend to have a healthy suspicion when it comes to economics. So when a political economist says they want to abolish the engine behind the dollar, you can understand that I have my suspicions on what they plan to do after that is done. Well, the Keynesians, and I use that term loosely, vie for more spending on non-work and inflation. The Austrians would rather end the central bank, liquidate the debt, with what? Is what I want to know, and balance the budget, which of course means to cut spending. So I don't really see any real monetary reform on either side here. While spending in non-work, speculative banks surely does not create jobs, I don't see how budget cuts would create jobs either. My question is, if these economists are really for a free market based on competition, then why don't they create their own banking cabal that could create currency that may even compete with the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States? If they did this, wouldn't we be able to provide another reserve currency that would give China its answer for an alternative to the dollar? And since the government loves the idea of a public option, now wouldn't they enjoy to see you go for a public option for the monetary system? I would prefer that this bank be a public government bank with the chairman being an elected representative. I would also demand that any loans given by this bank be given under the guarantee that no interest will be placed on any and all loans. It would also be wise to have all budget records published for everyone to see. In this way, anyone could decide who decides the value of money and not need to worry what decides the value of money. While it is true that supply and demand does determine the value of a commodity, the value of money is also typically determined by the person distributing it as currency. The Constitution also does not give any strict requirement that gold is the only commodity that is good for the use of currency. A public bank could use anything as currency with no problems. It really doesn't matter what it is. It could be gold, silver, copper, plastic, platinum, rubber, or even cloth. We could even reintroduce the tally stick system that lasted for literally hundreds of years. The cool thing about the tally stick system was that the value of the tally stick was not determined by its supply or even its demand. The tally stick's value was determined by the England tax rate, and it always kept its value above the king's demand for taxes, which was why it was perfect for the payment of taxes. Meaning that as long as the king had the ability to tax, the tally stick would always be useful for the payment of taxes, because its intrinsic value was always greater than what the king asked for. Here is a quote that may be enlightening for you and the Fed protesters. In the Panic of 1837, the stage had been set for depression by outgoing President Andrew Jackson's and Secretary of the Treasury Roger Taney's abolition of the Second Bank of the United States, by their cultivation of the state pet banks, by their imbecilic specie circular of 1836, which demanded gold payment to the federal government for the purchase of public lands, and by their improvident distribution of the Treasury surplus to the states. London's ultimate weapon turned out to be the Bank of England bank rate. With all the American defenses sabotaged, the Bank of England sharply raised its discount rates, sucking gold specie and hot money liquidity back across the Atlantic, while British merchants and trading houses cut off their lines of credit to their American customers. In the resulting chaos, not just private banks and businesses went bankrupt, but also the states of Mississippi, Louisiana, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and Michigan, which repudiated their debts, permanently impairing U.S. credit in the world. Internal improvements came to a halt, and the drift towards secession and civil war became more pronounced. Webster Tarpley, Against an Oligarchy. Webster Tarpley has also written an article on how to fix the monetary system, in which he says that we should abolish the IMF and World Bank, nationalize the Federal Reserve, and ban derivatives that cause quadrillions in securitized debts. Does it hurt to have one of your own sources go against what you believe, Alex Jones? Check the links in the sidebar for more information.